Josephus and Saint Jerome testify that the Greeks called Ashkenazi and Regiones. Bede says, Ashkenazi are Sarmatians whom the Greeks called Riginos. Not only Bede, but also Isidore and Jerome repeat, Askenaz a quo Sarmae quos Greci Reginos vocant. Other writers refer to this name as Reginiani. Strabo tells us that the river in Thrace was called Regina. The Greeks called one river in Thrace the region of ancient Epirus, which is modern Halkidiki. The inhabitants of Epirus were called Regians. The settlement of Epirus is a region in Italy. Therefore, we can conclude that the country of Ascania included, in addition to parts of western Asia Minor, in Europe, eastern and southern Thrace with Epirus. The fact that some tribes in Thrace were also called Ashkenazi is easy to understand, since they are the same tribes that are found in western Asia Minor. Nikolai Orga says, Brugis were on the right bank of Danube, and they were called Mysi or Mesi by the Greeks and Romans. Strabon found on Helm Mesi, Bitini, Besbric, Brigi, and Meoni. Bebric and Brigi include Jorg in Friga. This testifies to us that the same tribe was inhabited on both sides of the sea, the Bosphorus, and the Dardanelles. The Greek name Regini attracted attention on the other side, namely Joseph Mede cites Flavius and says, Ashkenazi are those from the Greeks called Regiones, who have a city of Region on the coast of Italy opposite of Sicily. Some writers have sought to link the city of Region in Italy with the city of Halkis on Euboea instead of Halkidiki, as the Greeks called Epirus. In that case, they did not go far either, because the city of Halkis on Euboea was the city of Thracian Abants. It is obvious that the Greeks called the city Halkis by the name of Halkidiki, as they called Epirus, and where they came from Abanti. Just as Enea came from Troy to southern Italy, so probably another group came to southern Italy from Epirus and founded a city that the Greeks called the Region. Enea's son and heir was Ascan. He ruled Latium and perhaps in a wider area of southern Italy. In the Middle Ages, the Arabs called all Serbs and Slavs Ashkenazi, and they were the same, so did the Jews. This name Ashkenazi spread from Thrace to Central Europe. Bohardius says, Ashkenazi is Bohemia. In early Middle Ages, Germany was mostly a Slavic country, so the Jews called it Ashkenazi as they still call it today. And a 19th century German professor Knobel of Gießen claimed that Germans were Ashkenazi. That should mean that at least half of Germans are Serbian origin. The prophet Jeremiah foretells the evil fate of Vardun and Chaldea, and as the main danger which should endanger them, mentions the kingdom of Ashkenazi together with Ararat and Minima, that is the Armenians. He mentions the kings Media as another danger. This tells us that Ascania had a great reputation among the people of the Middle East. Rifat. Euroasian spaces around the Urals. Gomer's other son is Rifat, who embodies a country about which little was known and even less was written. The only place of this country could occupy on a shown schedule in Izorod is north of Gomer. Some writers were too hasty when they saw Paphlagonia under name Rifat. But Paphlagonia is in the northern part of Asia Minor and part of Gomer, and Rifat should be sought further north, across the Black Sea, in a far known north, not the one known to the Jews or Greeks, but the one the Assyrians knew about. The difficulties in determining the location of this country, as well as other distant lands, arise from the belief that ethnography of the Old Testament was of Jewish origin, and the Jews could almost nothing about some distant lands. They tried to reduce the entire known world shown in Izorod to a small circle of countries around Palestine as possible. Jewish tradition does not provide evidence that they had a broader knowledge of Old Testament geography. Scholarly Jews from the Middle Ages saw this shortcoming and tried to make up for it, but there was no unity of opinion among them, but there were many arbitrary interpretations, so effect was very small. Accordingly, Josephus marked Paphlagonia under Rifat, and following him so did Saint Jerome. Regarding that, Alfred Morris says, Joseph followed the Jewish tradition and did not refer to the real name in distribution of countries. The land of Rifat was rightly brought into contact with Rifat Mountains. It is the name given by the Greeks to a mountain range in a far north known to them. As their knowledge of geography expanded, so did they move that mountain range further north. Even in the time of Pliny, the Caucasus was considered part of that northern mountain range. The Riphaean Mountains represent the Urals, which the ancient writers thought stretched east-west and reached all the way to Poland. Having vague idea of geographical position of Urals, they imagined it everywhere in the north, or so some identified it with the Carpathians. The Rifat covers a wide area around the Urals, with undefined borders to the east and west. Joseph Mede means by Rifat Russia and Prussia, and they were in his time. Prussia belongs to Taras as well as Poland and Ukraine. Rifat is more in Asia than in Europe. Ernest Rosenmiller also pointed out the only possible location of the country Rifat and gave an explanation that the ancient writers meant the Riphaean Mountains in the northernmost mountain range, which, according to their idea, stretches from Western Europe to Asia. He quotes Pomponius Melus, who is in his work De Situ Orbis says that Riphaean mountains are located from the river Phasis, it is the one Greek names for the river Volga, I'll remark, and to the west about the Black Sea. Eusebio Pamphil says that the Rifat is the land of Sarmatia. In his time, Sarmatia stretched from Urals to Germany. According to Bohardius, Arab writers meant Franks by Rifat. This Arab settings is not without grounds, because the French came from Sarmatia to the countries that the Romans called Germany and Gaul. Jewish tradition was preserved the memories of the people from the land of Rifat who settled there, in some places even in Palestine. Zachary Mayani about that tells us, the memory of this legendary people is preserved in Old Testament in the songs from Ugarit. The Rephaim were inhabited east of the Jordan River. Their part in Philistia in the time of David is mentioned as Bnei Hapa. These are Ripeni of Greek writers living on Mount Riphaean. In Odyssey, they are in Hyperborean country. Alcman talks about legendary Rappi mountain covered with forest. And Aeschylus 6th century BC, puts the mountain in Scythia. Later it was considered to be Urals, or the mountain where the Don springs. Rifat is in Anatolian region, where the Scythians settled, and Mount Rapha from the book Jubilee. One centaur was called Ripheus. Valerius Flaccus in Argonautica mentioned the Scythian names Ripheus. Bnei Rapha is mentioned in Ugarit. These are Scythian epigons of the Hyksos, as they say. Albert Hermann marks the Caucasus as Mountain of Rapha. A well-known testamentary scholar, John Quito, is listed as a descendant of Rifat. Among modern people Europe, only John Quito numbers as the descendants of Rifat among the modern people in Europe only Croats. With this remark, Quito proves that he knew the origin of Croats from the region of Upper Asia, where they were in fact the origin of Avars. We consider the Urals as the central point of the country of Rifat, and we cannot say with confidence how wide that country was in Asia.